The Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association presents Freshman Focus, a look at two-year-olds in training across the Buckeye State. Freshman Focus is presented by Eldorado Scioto Downs, now racing Tuesday through Saturday. First post time, 3:15. By Sugar Valley Farm. Looking for your next quality standardbred racehorse? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. And by the Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center. Caring down to a science. Now here is your host, Roger Houston.
Welcome to another edition of Freshman Focus. Today we're at the Delaware County Fairgrounds in Delaware, Ohio, to talk with the gentleman who has the largest stable of horses here at Delaware, Brian Brown. After this message, we'll be back to sit down and talk with Brian Brown about his two-year-olds in training.
Racing is back at Eldorado Scioto Downs. Catch the excitement all summer long. Live racing every Tuesday through Saturday afternoon. First post time is 3:15. Mark your calendar to see the future stars with a $150,000 Next Generation July 4th. Two-year-old trotters and pacers begin their careers in the next generation. Horse players earn points with a new Caesars Reward program. Eldorado Scioto Downs, live racing is back.
Welcome back to Freshman Focus, and with us today, of course, is Brian Brown. Brian, do you have as many down by the seasides this year?
No, we don't. We're probably half as many as I had last year.
You had such a successful year last year. Why the cutback?
Well, because everybody else had success with him, and when we went to the sales this year, they were quite a bit more expensive. So I just couldn't afford most of them.
What kind of a price range did you have this year on your horses?
Oh, a little bit all over. I think, I don't know exactly. The cheapest one probably was in the 30,000, at least one in the 40, maybe two of them at 100, and one of them at 230.
Is that because the first crop you had all those down by the seasides and now everybody else wants them, and so you've backed off a bit?
Exactly, and it's not only just the people in Ohio, people from out of state, New Jersey and even Canada are starting to buy them.
And that's from the success you had in the Breeders' Crown. And what'd you have, how many, 5 in the one race?
I had 3 colts, but only one of them was a Seaside, and he did finish second. But, you know, Ronnie Burke had his good mare, Sea Silk. She was second, had the 10-hole. And Pebble Beach was third in the final. He had 3 of them in, he had 2 seconds and a third.
So if you have fewer down by the seasides, is there a principal stallion that you have for this year's Ohio crop?
Probably the second most is still Fear the Dragon.
Fear the Dragons. Did you have success with the Fear the Dragons you had last year?
No, I only had 4, and I don't think, one of them actually was a decent colt. He had a curb that got to bothering him. He wasn't near as good at the middle to the end of the year. This year I have 3 colts and a filly that I really like. I think Fear the Dragon will have a better year this year than he did last year.
Now, stable-wise, it seems like you're still backing off a little. Is this intention?
Well, yes. You know, maybe the owners didn't buy as many. We started with 65 when I got back north here. We're probably at 60 now. We've sold some, turned some two-year-olds out. But, you know, the biggest problem all of us have these days is help. We just don't have enough help. We've got people taking care of more horses now than one person's ever taken care of. So we got to be careful in how many we get.
So nationwide, the problem with employees is carrying over into your racing operation.
Exactly. It's every business, and the horse business, I think seems like it's getting worse year to year. We're not getting the young people to replace the older people.
Now, your horses were down at Spring Garden Ranch, a good training period for them?
We had a really good year until the last 2 weeks. It got to raining quite a bit, and our track doesn't handle rain very well down there.
You know, you said the weather was kind of bad the last part down there at Spring Garden. It wasn't too good when you came north.
the first 6 weeks it was horrible. Raining, snowing. We had a few nice days, but it seemed like we had something every day.
With all that bad weather, so to speak, did it affect your training operation?
The rain does. You know, the cold, you just put more clothes on and you keep going. It doesn't seem to bother the horses. The rain doesn't bother the horses, but it ruins the track, so we just can't train.
This time of the year, are you about where you want to be?
We are pretty close to where I've always been, maybe not as close, but that's by design. I've been having trouble keeping them sound the last couple years. So I didn't start training as early this year and came along a little slower. I wasn't quite as fast when I left Florida. I was in 20, the same as I always am, but I do it about 4 times before I leave Florida. I go in 20. This year was only once. I even started 2 weeks later, starting to train than I normally do. Just trying to get them to the races without knocking so many out.
Have you set the dates for the qualifiers here at Delaware?
We just did that this week. You know, the biggest problem is getting the photo finish girl here. She has to do the Indiana fairs, the Ohio fairs, then we have to stay away from Scioto. So we're going June 20th and June 26th. So it's a Monday back on a Sunday.
Will your 2-year-olds be ready to go for those qualifiers?
Sure. I mean, I don't know if they'll be ready to go as fast as we did last year. We had 2 went in 54 in a piece last year. I don't want to do that this year, even if they are ready. We'll try to intentionally slow down a little bit.
For 2-year-olds, when does the stakes actually get started?
The new generation, I usually don't buy a slot in there. One of my owners does, Dr. Randy and Bob Hutchinson. But I've been in it at both years they've had it, both divisions. They are July 4th area, and then the first sire stake for Payson colts is like July 11th, so maybe even the 16th. So we're a little bit moved back from what we normally are, and for 2-year-olds that's a good thing.
No trotters, all pacers?
None. I didn't even have one yearling this year.
By design?
Not so much by design as I've been just, if I have a trotter, I usually buy it myself. Had 1 or 2 people send me one. This year just didn't have anybody. I didn't buy one myself and didn't have anybody send any.
It wasn't necessarily that you've given up on the trotters, it just it wasn't this year.
Yeah, my owners that I have don't deal much in trotters. The few that do, they have other trainers that train mainly trotters, so that's where they go with those.
Have the horses adapted well from the switch from Florida to Ohio? Is there a period of time that it's, you have to kind of back off or start back up again, or what?
I don't know if you necessarily have to. I did more this year. I usually give them a few days and start right in jogging. This year, I'm trying to be more cautious this year, not train as hard. I gave them the last week of Florida, the 2-year-olds. Last week of Florida off and the first week here in Ohio. So that put me another 2 weeks back. So I'm getting back to where I should be, but I think I'm doing better. I have more horses that are training really good right now. Like I said, I've had a few that I've had to quit with already. There's probably a few more that's within a week of probably they either got to straighten up or they're going to be turned out. So I don't think coming back to Ohio, I don't mind coming from the warm weather down there to the cold here. Doesn't seem to bother them near as much. When we leave here in the fall, and it can be in the 20s, whether it's night, even during the day we've had some cold days, even seen snow. We don't leave till right before Thanksgiving or right after Thanksgiving. We have more trouble going down because you go from the cold to the hot. And they're yearlings, so they're not in shape. When you go down there, they're not as tough. They're just getting started on their flu shots. We have more problems getting sick going down than we do coming back.
Would you say you had a successful year last year?
It was successful in ways. You know, I had a lot more 2-year-olds that didn't make it than I normally do. The 2 years before that, we did do much better last year than the 2 years before that. But we had 3 in the Breeders' Crown, a final, 2-year-old Pacers, We won Sire Stake Final here in Ohio. We won one in Indiana. We had 3 Indianas make 100,000 apiece. One made 200. So we did okay, but I'm trying to cut down the number of horses that didn't race. Just get them to the races, and then who they are is who they are.
Okay. Well, that wraps up this portion of Freshman Focus. After this message, we'll return and take a look at the 12 two-year-olds in training for Brian Brown.
Your animals provide unconditional love. When they hurt, you want the best care available to help them enjoy life again. The Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center is here for you and for them. From heart disease to cancer, diabetes to broken bones, and 24-hour emergency services, Ohio State's team of experts make a difference in the lives of animals and the family members who love them. The Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center.
Looking for your next champion? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. Sugar Valley's lineup of stallions include world champion Down by the Seaside, Lather Up, the fastest horse in harness racing history, Little Brown Jug champion Well Said, Catch the Fire, Marseille, plus the newest stallion of the Sugar Valley lineup, Mission Accepted, and returning to Sugar Valley Farm, Creatine. Sugar Valley Farm, the home of champions.
Welcome back to Freshman Focus. We're here with Brian Brown, and the first one we're going to take a look at is a colt pacer by the name of Chronicle, Down by the Seaside, out of the mare Tookaloo Hanover by Art Major. What about Chronicle?
This colt's starting to turn into a pretty nice horse. He was really spooky on the tracks, shying from other horses. We opened his bridle and kind of got him used to him. Now he's back in the blind bridle to where he'll pay more attention now, and we had to get his head up, but he's come around and he acts like he's going to turn into a nice horse.
Do you feel that all the ones by Down by the Seaside have a particular trait?
Well, last year I would have said yes, because they were all very headstrong. Not all, but most of them. Gulf Shore was a perfect little horse last year. Most of them were very headstrong. This year, they're much better mouths on them. I don't know why, but they were much easier to handle this year than they were last year.
Would that just be because of the mares involved?
Possibly, I don't know. Maybe I did a better job. My hands weren't as heavy this year.
Heavy hands, what do you mean by that?
Well, that means they put a bad mouth on the horse. They get the pulling and everything. You got to, with especially young horses, you try to be light-handed, where you don't have this much a hold of the bit.
You're taking a hold of them, but you don't have them
pulling. You don't want them to be grabbing on all the time.
How much you been with Chronicle?
This horse has been in 13.
13.
Yeah.
Is about normal?
That's pretty good for where we are right now. Last year I'd have probably been faster, but that's good for where we are this year.
This is Chronicle by Down by the Seaside. This is the 2-year-old filly Darby Creek by Down by the Seaside, out of Moonlit Dragon by Dragon Again. Darby Creek, we saw this one train the other day, and this is the one I really liked of the 12 that we trained.
Yeah, this filly has come around a lot. We've had to open her bridle up because she was getting headstrong. But that's just because she's getting really racy. She's not wild or anything like that. Doesn't have a bad mouth. Sometimes you just got to open them up to calm them down a little.
Now, in that training session that we saw, I don't know if we have video of it or not, but she made a break after the mile. Saw the tractor, and I'm sure that's what caused it. Do you get concerned when they make a break like that?
Well, you always get concerned anytime they're making a break, especially when you're training. Now, we were done, so we were slowing down, so it wasn't so bad. But, you know, they could always step on themselves, hit something. So, yes, it does bother you.
And they'll eventually get over that being scared of the tractor, won't they?
Most do. Some do not,
Really?
but most do.
So seeing it all the time is not necessarily going to help them.
Not necessarily, but if you remember, she passed the tractor in the training mile and had no problem.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, we were slowing down.
Maybe she's thinking of other things after the mile.
When you're in the mile, you kind of got them up in the bit, and you're making them pay attention.
How's she doing with the rest of your fillies?
Well, she started out, she was a little behind She wasn't great gaited when we first started, so we took a little longer to start training her. So she was a little bit behind in Florida, but since we've been home, she's really caught up, and now she's going with the best ones.
This is Darby Creek by Down by the Seaside. This is another filly, Touch and Base by Well Said, out of Spark Out by Badlands Nitro. I'm not too familiar with that breeding.
Badlands Nitro was a George Teague horse. Badlands Hanover was a really nice horse. I'm sure he made $1 million. Probably stands in Maryland, might have even stood in Canada, I'm not sure. So we don't see many of them around here.
Right. Touch and Base.
This filly's all right. She's in Florida early. She was very, very lazy. We finally opened her bridle to be able to fire her up a little so she could see the whip without, really have to chase her much. And she was getting good in Florida, and since we've been home, she acts like she's starting to learn how to train, and actually acts like she's knowing how to race.
The peripheral vision of a horse, is it similar to that of a human?
I would think, and I think it's probably even better.
Better?
I think, God made horses to where they can see more, just to be aware of any kind of predators when they're out in the field.
She right along with the others right now?
Yes, she's keeping right up with them. She isn't quite as aggressive as some of those others. And when you're going these slower times, like 13 to 20, the aggressive ones usually train better because you're hanging on to them. This one, you still have to make her go, but she's getting it.
Have you put your horses in race bikes yet?
No, I won't do that till I'll probably train in 210 and jog carts, and then I'll start going to race bikes.
This is Touch and Base by Well Said. This is the filly pacer Hey Hey Mama by Down by the Seaside. I'll Roll Up the Rim by Roll with Joe. Do you have a preference? Do you like the fillies over the colts, or colts over the fillies, or doesn't matter?
No, I don't. I mean, I like to train both. We've had some good success lately with fillies. The Seasides, I don't think it matters. Sometimes you'll get a stud. Seems to throw good colts and not good fillies. Sometimes it's vice versa. But last year with the Seasides, he had good fillies and colts.
Do you feel that some owners, though, want the fillies because if they don't make it on the racetrack, they still could be a good, solid broodmare?
Right. We don't have many of those anymore, owners that go that way. But sure, there are owners that think that way.
What about Hey Hey Mama?
This one's one of our better ones too. She's been good right from the start. From day one, good gaited, always had good desire, does whatever you want to do. Just so far, there's just been no problems with her.
Would you call her small or medium?
I would say medium, maybe a little smaller medium, but big enough. She's fine.
Do you have to train horses different because of their size?
No, I don't. We're lucky enough we go to Florida, so we're on a mile track. So those big ones, they don't seem to bother them, and they learn their speed better down there because of the long stretches, bigger turns. So by the time I get up here, usually the bigger ones can handle themselves pretty good.
What about purse-wise? Is it easier to make money with a filly or with a colt?
I don't think it's easy to make money with anything. The racing, especially in Ohio, the purses have gotten so good, it's tough everywhere you go. It doesn't matter if you're in the cheapest condition or in the sire stakes. It seems like every race is tough.
How much you been with her?
She's been 13 also.
What kind of a price tag?
I'm thinking 70 to 80.
So up towards that top level for you this year.
Yeah.
Is she living up to that?
Yeah, she's doing very well. We're really happy with her.
This is Hey Hey Mama by Down by the Seaside. This is the colt pacer Willy Fast by Down by the Seaside, out of Dreamy Elena by Rock and Roll Hanover. Willy Fast, he's a sharp looker.
He is. He's a good looking horse, but he has a little bit of white on him, so it kind of makes him stand out some.
You're not against horses having a lot of white?
No, I don't mind what color they are. I've had decent red horses. I've had good gray horses. So no, just so they're good horses on the track. It doesn't matter what color they are.
How's he been doing with the other colts?
He's been a little bit lazier, but he'll go do whatever you want him to do. You just have to make him do it.
Will he ever get out of that?
Oh, I'm sure. If you see, we opened his bridle up so that he can see the whip and the other horses, and they just seem to smarten up a little quicker. They get a little racier.
Now that headpiece he's got, is that, you can see partially to the back of him, out front, but I see that hole there on the side.
The holes are so he can see behind him and he can see the whip, so you're not have to chase him much. You just show him the whip sometimes. And plus he can see horses coming from behind him, and it just kind of makes him a little livelier and a little racier.
This is Willy. Willy, fast. This is the gelding pacer Mossy Dragon, our first Fear of the Dragon out of Sherry My Sherry by Rock and Roll Hanover. I notice all of your ones that we're featuring from Fear of the Dragon are all geldings.
I do that on purpose because I have had bad luck with the Dragon Again line, and the stud colts get kind of sulky, so I cut them early when we're first breaking them.
Now, that was before you even went to Florida.
Yes. Yeah, all the Fear of the Dragons were gelded before we even went to Florida.
How's he been doing?
This horse is pretty nice. He, for a Dragon Again line, he's got a great attitude. He's not been one problem all year. He doesn't wear a lot of equipment, you know, he's one of those that just goes out and does his work, and you don't have to push him hard to do it.
You know, a lot of the down by the seasides you'd call maybe extra large on a lot of them. This one is probably a medium to a large.
He's yes, between medium. I wouldn't call him large, but he's probably bigger than the average medium.
Is that a trait with the Fear of the Dragons?
No, last year I was actually disappointed in the Dragons. I didn't like the way most of them looked at the sale. They were smaller, little lighter built. This year when we went to the sale, I was very happy with the way they looked. They looked bigger and stronger. And that's the kind of horse I like, bigger and strong.
That wouldn't have anything to do with Fear of the Dragon. Doesn't that go back to the mare?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know why it is, but last year his colts didn't look that great. I'm not saying none of them did. You know, some of them sold really well. But this year I thought the overall group was a better looking group than last year's.
How's he been on the racetrack?
He's been perfect. He doesn't do a thing wrong. He's very racy, easy to train.
Was that from day one?
Pretty much, yeah. He didn't have a problem. You know, again, I gelded him just for the future, not because he was doing anything wrong.
Mossy's Dragon by Fear the Dragon. This is a gelding pacer, Umami Blue Chip, out of Fear of the Dragon, out of Jenny's Terror by Western Terror. Much like the other Fear of the Dragons?
He's a different because he's a little more excitable. He gets a little hot on the track, which again, for the Dragon Again line, I don't mind because at least it shows he wants to go.
How much you been with him?
He's been right at the 13 range, between 13 and 15 with most of them. I have a couple groups that are 17 to 20 right now.
You know anything about the mare Jenny's Terror?
No, he come from Blue Chip Farms. Honestly, after I buy him and done looking at the sale book, I have to go back and look again to see the family.
But who are the owners on this one?
This one's owned with David Prushnock and
Punxsutawney, PA.
Yeah, and John Cahill started a group. I think it's called Cedar Point Beach Racing or something like that.
Well, that might be that fractional ownership group that he has.
Yeah.
Umami Blue Chip, been doing quite well, and you look for a good future.
Right now, we like this horse. He's one of the 3 Dragon Again colts that are training very well.
Umami Blue Chip by Fear the Dragon. This is gelding pacer, the Mad Dragon by Fear the Dragon, out of the Mad Hatter by Captain Treacherous. What about this one?
This colt's one of my Fear of the Dragons that's doing really well. He was pretty good early from the start. Decent size, a little thin for my liking, but that's just the way he's been all year. Bought this horse, the Hutchinsons bought this horse, but I wanted to buy him myself for anybody. But they asked about him. I had his mother. She never got to the races. She wound up with OCDs in her spine, up in her vertebrae, up in her neck. And it got to where she just couldn't handle herself. But when she was good early training down, she looked like she was going to make a really nice filly. So I was glad to get one out of her.
You know, a lot of people say that, oh, the stallions are a dime a dozen, but it's the mare that really counts.
Well, I believe in that too. I mean, there's studs that I want to buy from, train those horses, but you got to look at the mare side. I think it's at least 50%, if not as much. But you know, you still get sires like Down by the Seaside that right now he's starting to produce out of any family. So again, I think Fear the Dragon's going to have a much better year.
Is he about with the others, or is he?
No, he's. Well, I wouldn't say anybody's ahead of the other one because we're only trying to go so fast, but he's with the best ones.
This is The Mad Dragon by Fear the Dragon. This is the colt pacer Seafire by Down by the Seaside out of Wildfire Princess by Towner's Big Guy. Seafire doing quite well.
This horse has turned into a pretty nice horse. A little bit on the lazy side early, but he's come around good. I had his brother last year that didn't turn out to be very good, but I had his sister, Big Bad John filly named Present, Pretty, and Perfect. Was a really nice filly. Won the state fair, won several sire stakes. I only was beat once as a 2-year-old. This colt altogether different looking from her, but he's not as big as his brother last year, but he's still a pretty good sized colt, a nicer looking horse than his brother from last year.
You mentioned right at the very beginning, you said turning into. Was he a little rough at the beginning?
Just on the lazy side. You know, you had to make him do it, but now you really don't have to make him. He's got it figured out now.
This is a colt pacer Seafire by Down by the Seaside. This is the filly pacer Windy Day at the Beach. Down by the Seaside out of Sapphire Breeze by Well Said. Windy Day of the Breeze can be rambunctious.
The only problem we have is coming out the stall. She wants to run out. When it's time to come in, she doesn't want to come under. I think it has a lot to do with the overhang here is very low. She's a good size filly, so she gets a little nervous when she comes out.
Think she'll get over it eventually?
Some do and some don't. Yeah, it's not been going well. I mean, she really hasn't improved.
Is it because of a first experience, maybe?
I think it has a lot to do with it. When she did this right from the start.
When you get her to the track, different?
In Florida, she was better, but she would still do it. We have a much bigger overhang down there, but she still did it.
On the racetrack, though, is she?
Been pretty good. Pretty nice filly.
She's right along with the other fillies?
Yes. Yeah, she keeps up. She goes right with them, does everything she's supposed to do.
This is Windy Day at the Beach by Down by the Seaside. This is the filly pacer Soft Spot by Nob Hill High out of Ideal Love by American Ideal. She's got a soft spot in anybody's heart?
I'm sure her groom likes her. She's been a nice filly to be around, doesn't do anything wrong, easy to take care of in the barn. Training right with our better ones, the Seasides and the Dragons. We've had good luck with the Nob Hill Highs. There just isn't very many of them every year, so there are not a lot of them out there.
Her good actions in the barn carry over out on the racetrack?
Yes, great attitude, can do anything with her, got a good mouth to her.
When you train her, pretty clean with the equipment?
Yeah, I don't even know if she wears knee boots, so
yeah.
She's doing everything she's supposed to be doing.
She's that 213 range as well?
Yes, between 13 and 15, yes.
Now, from 213, where will you drop them next time?
I'm going to train tomorrow right at 210 with them.
Okay. This is Soft Spot by Nob Hill High. This is Dynamite Dillon, a colt pacer by Down by the Seaside out of Dobre Providence, out of Well Said. This one comes from the guys over in Pennsylvania, I guess, at least the mare did.
Yes, this horse is bred by the Prushnocks, and he was one of them that was a little behind early. I think it was more him just being a boy and wanting to play instead of work, and he's turned around a lot, especially since we've come home. He's gotten pretty good.
He might have played around, but not enough to make him a gelding.
No, Dave kind of set me back on some of that. I wanted to geld him, and Dave told me no.
Really?
So, yeah, you know, some owners prefer them to be studs as long as they can, and I don't really have a preference. And the colt really wasn't doing much wrong, so I didn't have a problem with it.
Maybe he's looking for a stud career down the road.
Yeah, maybe. He's turning around. I think he's going to be a nice horse.
Think he could be a sire stake?
Oh, right now, if I had to say, if I was entering today, he'd be going in the sire stakes.
This is the colt pacer, Dynamite Dillon, another down by the seaside. Well, that wraps up another edition of Freshman Focus. We'd like to thank trainer Brian Brown, his second trainers, and all of his caretakers for helping us out and giving us a big part of their day with Freshman Focus. Oh, Jennifer Brown, she runs the operation. Join us again next week, same time, same location for another edition of Freshman Focus.
This has been Freshman Focus, a look at 2-year-olds in training across the Buckeye State. Freshman Focus is presented by Eldorado Scioto Downs, now racing Tuesday through Saturday. First post time, 3:15. By Sugar Valley Farm. Looking for your next quality standardbred racehorse? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. And by the Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center. Caring down to a science. Freshman Focus is a presentation of the Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association.